Now that is a big pile of Episode 20, tackling the pile of shame. To be honest, I didn't think I'd get this far, but it turns out you guys like to watch me. And I know that sounds creepy, but I'm a modern man, down with the kids, I'm hip. And my OnlyFans link will be in the description below. Let's get on with some building. So let's start by talking mushrooms. And I'm not talking about the ones you'd take before listening to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, backwards and in the dark. No. This is how I make my fantasy mushrooms now. I watched Ian Griffin's studio make these in one of his builds. It's an awesome channel. So big shout out to him for making my mushroom building so much simpler. So this technique for making mushrooms is simple. Just cut a length of dowel, put a hole into one end of it, and then glue half a cocktail stick into that hole, and then either using sandpaper or, if you're like me, with my useless rotary tool, to shape the dowel in what should resemble mushrooms, and then slap a bit of paint on them and you're good to go. As you can see, I made a little base for mine so I could just paint them and then slot them into the base. That was dead simple. Just a bit of spare wood, hole in it, there you go. Now this is what they call a Cellulite Roller. I saw this in my local Euro store and instantly thought to buy two. Now, after a brief detour to my local A&E to get one of them surgically removed, after my other half had politely declined her gift of a Cellulite Roller, I got to work turning it into a thing of beauty, safe in the knowledge that if I had a spare in case I stuffed up my first attempt. Basically, I clipped away all the rubber nubs, scored the plastic so the glue had a better chance to adhere, then rolled the gravel onto it and it worked a treat. Surprised myself in how clever I was, and now I use this if I'm texturing my foam board or XPS foam. And if the roller ever does become dull, all I have to do is reapply more hot glue and more gravel to the actual roller. It's a win-win. As you can see, I've got 3 different samples, foam board and 2 different kinds of XPS foam, and the proof is in the pudding. I'm a genius. Mushrooms, little spots, done. And like I said in the intro, this is episode 20, which started out as an experiment, just to see if I could put out and cobble together a video, just using my phone and all the free software that you can get off the app stores, because I'm a Yorkshireman and I don't like to spend money. Now obviously if the channel does grow, then I will buy bigger and better equipment, so it'll be more polished videos. Until then, it's down and dirty, just how your wife likes it. So I bought these two when I was over in the UK visiting a couple of months ago. I came back negative, by the way, which was a shock. So once I'd sanded all down the rough areas and glued them onto the bases, I gave them a grey primer bath, only then to realise, had I been bothered to read the instructions on the back of the box, which, who knew these came with instructions, said they were all ready to paint, no primer needed. So I moved swiftly on to making the diorama itself. I cut out some 5mm XPS foam and pre-textured it using the Cellulite Roller I had already made. Unfortunately there's no footage of this, as I seem to have had a senior moment and forgotten to press record on the camera. Actually thinking for once, I measured the base of the 2 little DnD figures that I've got and marked out 1-inch square lines and scored those lines with a craft knife and pencil, and then added more detail to the paving stones with the roller and tinfoil. So using a craft knife, here I am just cutting out bits of chunks from the paving stones, just to give it more of a worn, rustic look. Then using another offcut of the XPS foam, I'm just going to measure out and cut out the back piece, which will be for the wall and for the wooden door. To make the door kind of look right, knowing that the figures are 28mm, I did the measurements of 1.5 inches by an inch wide for the door, and looking back, I think I made the door just a little bit too big, but then again, it is just like a fantasy door, so it can be as big or as small as you want. I used a wire brush to give the door texture like normal wood, then used a sharp pencil to exaggerate those lines in the wood. Then once the door was done, it was just a matter of putting in the wall stone brickwork. So just using a pencil, used the craft knife just to give me a sharper line, and then just to score it again with the pencil to give it some depth. I then sprung out some, I think it was 5mm, 2mm foam board cut into small lengths, and used the wire brush to add more texture, and then just simply stuck them onto the edging of the door to make it like the framework, and then finished that off with using some sticky beads to act as the nail heads. I have actually had emails sent to me asking questions, so I thought I'd tackle some of the questions. And the first question comes from a Mr. Butts. Seymour Butts asks, does glue go out of date? And the answer is yes, it does. I bought these two together as a set. That's the activator, that's the glue. and in one of my videos you can actually see me using a pair of pliers to try and get the glue out of this, and I abandoned it because it was rock hard. So yes, glue, or some cheapy glue, does go out of date. The next question is from a Mr. Freely. IP Freely asks, do I work in my shed? As you can see, yes I do. This is Terrain by Aaron's HQ. This is where all the magic happens, and this is where all my builds end up. And then lastly from a Miss Crutch. My Crutch asks, how do I come up with the ideas for all my builds? That's simple. As you may or may not know, I don't live in the UK anymore because I moved, relocated because of work, and I often refer to buying stuff in euros and not pounds, and so what I do is I just, in the night time, leave the stuff out on the bench and I toddle off to bed, and then the leprechauns come out and build everything. So in the morning I've got to build. So I sealed everything with a mixture of matte Mod Podge, black paint and some water, just so everything would get into all the cracks and crannies, and seal everything up before, once everything had dried, I then recoated it with a proper black. So once everything was dry, I used burnt sienna on the door frame and the door, and then once that had dried, I used a dry brush of, I think it was grey, and then I reapplied a dry brush of latte over that just to make the entire base pop. Again, there was something I forgot to record, was how I made the door handle, which was just basically the back of an earring and a little metal washer that I'd just snipped open and carefully glued around the earring and then stuck it into place. Channeling Bob Ross, I thought the base was too dark, so opted to paint random squares grey and a latte colour. This stage always makes a diorama look too bright, but I've learnt from making lots of this sort of stuff that with a little black wash it soon tones everything down. Then I just added some more little dry brush details, a bit of blue and a bit of green. It made everything sort of, well, I think, look better than what it had done. And then using some strong PVA glue, I stuck the magic mushrooms into place and then sprinkled some mixed herbs into the mix, and basically the diorama was done. And as always, gotta thank you for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you on the next video.